Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to At the Book for this Thursday, January 20th, NFL Playoffs Divisional Round weekend. I'm Zach Ewing. That's Devin Jackson and Jim Derry. If you can read, you could already have known that. And we are brought to you by Caesars Sportsbook. As you can see behind me, I'll move my camera just a little bit. See, it's the Caesars Sportsbook here at Harrah's, New Orleans. I am live on site in downtown New Orleans, and we're ready to roll for NFL Divisional Weekend. We got a good show for you. We'll talk about our divisional round picks, of course. We'll talk Jeff Duncan. We won't talk to him, but we'll give you his picks for Beat the Pros, which you can play and win a trip right here to Harrah's or even a trip to Las Vegas. And we will talk to Trey Wingo, the Trends Officer for Caesars, former ESPN Sports Center anchor, and get his take as well. So a lot of good stuff to get to, even a little basketball we'll throw in. Boys, how we doing?
I texted you guys earlier. It's happy and sad all at the same time. It's my favorite weekend of the year. Divisional round is my favorite football weekend of the year. But when it's over, there are only 3 games left, and it's kind of sad that football is just about coming to the finish line.
Yeah, yep. Only 7 games left, and we had 6 last weekend, so that kind of puts it in perspective that it really is coming down to it. And Devin, I know you agree with that.
Yeah, it's really coming down towards the end, and definitely sad to see it go. But we've had some great football over the last few weeks, and it's only going to get better over the next few.
Don't be sad because it's over. Be glad because it happened. Especially in this age of COVID, guys. I mean, you listen. Any season is a good season, and I say that too because when you guys were saying that, I mean, I'm a big baseball fan. We don't know when baseball season's going to start. They're still in a lockout. They don't appear to be making a ton of progress. I know a deadline motivates everybody, but as of right now, it doesn't seem like baseball season will start on time, at least not spring training on time.
Zach, I'm one of the few people who in this area who like baseball more than I like football, and so I'm with you. We don't know what's coming up. And a shout out to Uncle Big Nick who tested positive for the vid today. So we're giving our best wishes to him, even if he is a 49ers fan.
Get well soon, Uncle Big Nick, and don't show up at Lambeau. It's too cold for COVID. Joey first in the room. Hello. Speaking of baseball, by the way, James Carville went on a rant today, as he is wont to do, about baseball and about Rob Manfred. So I want to get to that. Trey Wingo coming up, but let's first cash in with Carville. The game is over, but James was kind enough to continue to pick with us and do videos with us through the Super Bowl. So we got his divisional round picks. We also did a couple of prop bets with him, and he added his bonus baseball rant. So let's go ahead and view cashing in with Carville. Welcome back to Cashing In with Carville, NFL Divisional Round Edition. I'm Zach Ewing along with James. And the NFL got off to a kind of a slow start in the playoffs, honestly. There was like 1 good game out of the 6. But what it gave us was a bunch of good matchups.
Yeah, I mean, this feels like this is going to be a good weekend. I mean, I'm excited for it. You got 2 games Saturday. You got 2 games Sunday. I like that schedule. I like having the Monday game, although it wasn't worth a damn.
That was really the problem, wasn't it? Was that all the primetime games were wipeouts. But this, in my opinion, might be the best weekend of the year for football fans because you have wall-to-wall action, and it's meaningful. But you're not to the point where you're just sitting around waiting for 1 game yet either. So let's get to it. Bengals at Titans Saturday afternoon. This is the first one. Joe Burrow and the boys got their first playoff win in 31 years last week. What do they do for an encore? It's Titans minus 3.5.
That's a really hard one, but I'm going to take the Bengals.
Bengals with the points, all right. But Joe Burrow, by the way, has not lost a must-win game in a long time.
Next.
All right. Next up will be Saturday night up in frigid Green Bay. The Packers minus 6 against the San Francisco 49ers.
I like the 49ers.
49ers with the points. All right. And then moving on to Sunday, we've got Rams at Bucks. Maybe the best matchup of the weekend. Rams get their Matthew Stafford his first playoff win, and now they go to Tampa Bay. It's Bucks minus 3.
I couldn't pick the Rams if the Bucks were minus 43.
Just out of principle.
Just I can't stand them. And you know what else? And I really hate the helmets, and I really don't like their uniforms. In addition to everything else.
I think you said that last week, and it didn't jinx them at all. So
didn't. But if at first you don't succeed,
you can try again. I said that was the game of the weekend. Probably the game of the weekend is the last one. Everything leads up to this. Josh Allen and the Bills, Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs. They play in Kansas City. Buffalo beat them there earlier this year, but it's Kansas City -2.
Chiefs.
It's the Chiefs. Why the turnaround from earlier in the year?
Well, you see teams play really close. Arizona and the Rams, it wasn't that close. They said playoff football is different, and they're at home and they're not bad. And the Chiefs have a lot of LSU guys too.
That is true. Darrell Williams, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, and Tyrann Mathieu. So
Tyrann Mathieu, until Joe Burrow came, was the best player in the history of LSU football. In the history of LSU football.
It's hard to argue with the impact he had in those 2 seasons.
Oh, God. Everybody knew exactly where he was anywhere on the playing field.
All right, before we let you go, we are going to play a couple of player props this week to fill out the cards, so to speak. The first one, speaking of great LSU players, Joe Burrow, over or under 275.5 yards passing.
I think he's going to throw for 277.
All right, we'll go over by a touch. And then the last one from this Bills-Chiefs game, more total yards, so combining rushing and passing between Josh Allen or Patrick Mahomes.
I think the Chiefs will win the game, but I think Josh Allen will have more yards.
All right, we'll go Allen on that one. And you mentioned the basketball team last night. LSU hit a little bit of a slump. Pelicans are struggling. I guess we're waiting for baseball season around here.
If there is one. If baseball doesn't get this straight pretty fast, they're going to fall off the face of the earth. And I'm a big baseball fan, by the way. But there's just, in the entertainment world, there's just so many choices now. And if the public, I'm subsidizing a $500 million stadium, and these guys can't play, to hell with it. They better, Rob Manfred and Tony Clark, they better get on the stick here, because this is not going to end very pretty for them.
Yeah, no, you're right about that. We got a deadline approaching, and maybe that'll motivate him.
All right. Ken Rosenthal had a good piece in The Athletic. I thought it was good. The Athletic is always good.
Yeah, no, I think I read the same thing, and so they better get on the ball. So we have a message for baseball. We got some football picks, and this has been Cashing In with Carville. Thank you, James.
All right, man. We'll see you. We're going to kill them this week. Feeling good. All right.
Let's do it. All right.
All right.
There's a lot to unpack there. That was one of the shortest Carville videos of the year, just 5 minutes. But we had Tyrann Mathieu is the greatest LSU player pre-Joe Burrow. We had Rob Manfred get your stuff together, which I don't think anybody would disagree with, and we had some picks. So there was a lot there.
James has got a lot going on right now. I'm surprised he even talked for that long or came on at all. I mean, he's on every national network. I've seen him the last week and a half with all the politics that's going on this week. So, hey, hats off to James Carville for taking time to talk to us.
Absolutely, and the only politics we'll talk around here is for Rob Manfred. Of course he doesn't have a Twitter account or anything, but I wish I could put him on blast with when James Carville's calling you out, taking time off from his political analyst job to blast you. You're just doing something wrong, Rob. You're doing it wrong.
Yeah, I mean, he's right though. I mean, it's incredible how these guys can't get on the same page and realize that we don't have time for this foolishness. And this game is having a hard time turning on the younger fan. They're doing better with the Tatises of the world and Baby Bichette and all that stuff, and hitting home runs and playing the games a little bit more fun. But they got a long way to go to get young people interested in baseball. Ask Devin how he feels about baseball.
And his team won the World Series this year.
Yeah, so I mean, there you go.
But yeah, I mean, I feel like they have to find a way to connect with the younger audience because I mean,
100%.
unless you're really invested in baseball and investing in your team, there's a lot of games that are on ESPN and some of the big networks that go and watch just because people either don't know what is going on or when they're watching, there's nothing that keeps them engaged. So we'll see what happens. I heard Alex Rodriguez was trying to do a show similar to like the Mannings and trying to get a show like that working for ESPN. So we'll see. We'll see what happens with that.
Get it away. Get it away.
Is J-Lo going to be on it?
Okay, then maybe. Here's what I'll say. This is the last thing I'll say on it. We'll move on. People like to frame this as millionaires against billionaires. 40% of the players in the Major League Baseball Players Association are not millionaires. It is not millionaires against billionaires. There are some millionaires, obviously, among the players. But what we're talking about is players who are making a few $100,000 for a couple of years, and then they retire, right? Or they're not good enough to stick around, versus owners who basically own these teams as a plaything, right? That's what we're talking about here. So I just don't see a lot of sympathy for the owners in this situation. I just don't.
Can't wait to have this debate on Datitude in a month or so.
Don't tell me you side with the owners in this thing.
I'm more with the owners than I am with the players. But
no. Okay, well, we'll debate that some other time because that's a whole show. Right now, we want to talk some NFL Divisional Round playoffs. We do have Trey Wingo in the studio, I believe, and he is here to join us, the Caesars Trends Officer, Senior Trends Officer for Caesars, Trey Wingo, and we will welcome him to the show. Trey, how are you today?
Good, man. How are you? Thanks for being with us. And I just caught a little snippet of that conversation. What were we talking about there before I jumped in?
Well, we're bemoaning the fact that football season's almost over, combined with the idea that baseball's on this precipice right now that we don't know when we're going to get a baseball season.
Just shove baseball away. Like, go fix your problems and come back to us. Like, baseball is one of those things that, learn from your past or survive in advance, one or the other. Like, don't do this again. I get it that I think I heard Jim saying that he's siding with the owners more than the players. But at the end of the day, nobody's losing money. So figure it out. Just like we went through this so often in the 90s with baseball, right? In the 80s. And if they want to continue to be less relevant, then let them, because the baseball ownership, baseball viewership, and fanage is getting older and smaller every year. So if they just want to, sort of extinct themselves, they have no one but themselves to blame.
Yeah, Trey, let me make it clear. I don't really side with either one of them. I agree with you 100%. Yeah. They're both wrong. So they need, and if they don't figure it out real soon, baseball's going to become irrelevant.
Jim, you're right. Look, at the end of the day, people want the product. And if you are the reason the product is not put out there, that's on you. I mean, the NHL is finally coming back to some degree.
That's right.
From the year they took off. They just decided to shut it down for a year in the height of arrogance and hubris. And the sport has really never fully recovered. And if baseball goes through another long work stoppage, when nobody's sticking around to watch 162 games that sometimes go 4 hours long to begin with, we'll all move on with our lives and find something else to entertain us.
There's no Sosa versus McGuire this time around.
Yeah, exactly. There's nothing like that to save them. And we just came off a really cool World Series, right? Where a heavily favored team was beaten by sort of a young upstart squad in Atlanta. And if you're finding a way, you should be finding a way to capitalize on that, right? Look at all this great stuff that happened. Instead, both sides are trying, oh, look, there's a raging fire. Give me as much water as I can to douse it. It's just the height of stupidity.
It's bad, and hopefully the deadline will motivate them, and the idea that they know that they're going to lose everybody if they do it again.
Do they? Like, I'm not sure they know. That's the problem.
I guess we'll find out. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that was not the way this was planned to start, but I'm glad we got that out of the way. Mobile betting about to go live in Louisiana. We hope as soon as next week, Trey. The buzz around Caesars is a lot, I know, and a lot of it has to do with this deal. We've got $300 when you sign up. A deposit match of up to $3,000. You can go to NOLA.com/Caesars to get that bonus. It's a lot of fun when this thing launches, isn't it?
It's a blast. Look, we were out there in Arizona when it started, and it actually took off. And then they opened New York a couple of weeks ago, and they took over 1 million bets in 48 hours. Look, it's always more fun when you have a skin in the game, right? It's why fantasy football is taking off. Oh, my team sucks, or none of my quarterbacks are playing, but I can get a quarterback from another team, and that way I'm interested, And it's the same way with this. It's like playing a round of golf with your buddies, right? You start out slow, and then by the ninth hole, you're like, well, let's put a little juice in this, and suddenly everybody perks up. So that's what makes it more fun, as long as you do it within your own means and stay within your own comfort zone.
As long as Trevor Simeon's not your fantasy quarterback, then you're happy, right?
Boy.
Or
Really,
Ian Book.
Zach?
Or
Ian Book, yeah.
Yeah.
We'll talk about that as we go on, but let's get to the games this weekend. That's what everybody's here to talk about. The first one Saturday, near and dear to a lot of people's hearts around here. The Bengals have almost become Louisiana's second home team because of Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase. They're dogs this weekend at Tennessee. What do you make of this one, Trey?
Well, a couple of things. First of all, the young skill position players in Cincinnati might be the best young set of skill position players in the NFL. And what I mean by that is Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, and Joe Mixon are all 25 years or younger. That is how you create a dynastic franchise, by having players that good, that young together, if they can keep them together. So the future, I think, is really bright for Cincinnati. It's a problematic matchup for me for a couple of reasons, because as exciting as that win was the Bengals had over the Raiders, their first playoff win in 31 years, it cost them Larry Ogunjobi, their defensive tackle, who's played great for them. Mike Daniels is also not likely to play. And as we're having this discussion, Trey Hendrickson, their best pass rusher, is still in concussion protocol. The last team you want to face, if you're thin on the defensive line, is a returning Tennessee Titans with Derrick Henry potentially back in the lineup. And I'm not saying the Titans have to have Derrick Henry, but the Titans average 201 passing yards per game this season. To put that in perspective, that's the lowest total for a number one seed heading into the postseason since the 2008 Titans and the 2008 Giants, who were both one seeds in the AFC and NFC that year, and both lost their first playoff game. So even if he's the world's greatest decoy, like the Statue of Liberty out there, stiff arming the occasional defensive back into suborbit, it's going to change how you have to defend the Titans. And if they can use him either effectively or as a decoy against a very thin defensive line for Cincinnati, that's problematic, I think, for the Bengals.
Yeah, it's a little bit different animal than playing the Raiders at home. I agree with that.
Correct.
And Saturday night in Green Bay, it's going to be cold. We know that. The 49ers will probably try to run the ball. We know that. Jimmy Garoppolo is banged up. Is 6 too many points? I mean, it's quite a few points for this round.
I think this game is going to be a lot closer than people in Green Bay want to believe for a couple of reasons. I think there's more pressure on the Packers and Aaron Rodgers than any team left in the playoffs right now. And I get it. Everybody has pressure. But with all the acrimony we saw this offseason between Aaron Rodgers and the front office, which has been there for years, and he and Devontae Adams tweeting and putting on Instagram the last dance, I believe that to be the case. And if they don't win it all again, somehow, some way, you're going to have who at any point during his tenure was either the top, the second, or the third best quarterback in football, Aaron Rodgers. And you guys only made it to one Super Bowl as a wild card and won it all. That's not enough. And they've had real problems as a number one seed. They've also never beaten the 49ers. Aaron Rodgers-led Packers have never beaten the 49ers in the postseason. They've lost to them 3 times. And no quarterback has ever gone 0-4 in postseason play in NFL history against one franchise. And it's ironic, or coincidental, however you want to describe it, that it would be the Niners for Aaron Rodgers, who, of course, he has a huge chip on his shoulder for them taking Alex Smith over him in the 2005 draft. And it's the matchups inside the matchups, right? As good as the Packers have been this year, they were 30th against the run, giving up 4.7 yards per rush. And it was worse the last 3 games of the season. They gave up almost 5.5 yards per rush. Well, what do the 49ers want to do? I mean, they beat him in the championship game 2 years ago when Jimmy G threw it 8 times with a healthy hand. And now I don't know if he's going to throw it 7 times in this game. If they can get that running game going with Elijah Mitchell and Deebo Samuel just doing everything like he did against the Cowboys. I mean, they held the ball for 8 minutes more than Dallas, and they rushed for 169 yards on 38 attempts. They would love to do that against Green Bay, and that's the weakness in the Green Bay defense right there. Their run defense.
Yeah, I mean, you hate to oversimplify something, but really, if the 49ers can run the ball, this game is going to go in the direction they want it to go. If they can't, then Jimmy G has to get involved, a bum shoulder. I mean, now maybe they've got problems.
Yeah, that hand is going to be an issue. And look, that game against the Cowboys, I thought, was the full Jimmy G experience, right? When you ask him not to win the game, he's great. And then he's going to make 2 mistakes trying to win the game that keep you in it. Like the overthrow to Ayuk when it would have been an easy touchdown. I think it was on 3rd down. It would have made it 30-7. That's ball game over. And then the horrible overthrow on the interception, which allowed the Cowboys back in it. And the Cowboys somehow said, thanks, but hold my beer. We'll find a way to screw this up with that draw. So, yeah, that was the full Jimmy G experience. And that's why 2 years ago they only had him throw it 8 times when the running game was working against Green Bay.
There are those here who believe Jimmy G may be a candidate to be the Saints quarterback next year, but we'll talk about that after we get through the games. That's just a little foreshadowing.
Sure.
Moving on to Sunday, the first game, the early game, Rams at Bucks. Interesting betting game here. A lot of money coming in on the Rams. It moved immediately from 3.5 down to 3. Any reason for that you can see?
Well, a couple of things. One, these are 2 completely different teams than when they met, I think, in week 3 of this year when the Rams beat them at SoFi, because Gronk didn't play in that game, but also Von Miller didn't play in that game, and Odell Beckham Jr. didn't play in that game. So we're talking about 2 completely different franchises. And if the Rams can find a way to beat the Bucks, it bodes well for them to win the whole thing, and I'll tell you why. Because there are 3 teams that have done this against Tom Brady, beaten him in the regular season and in the postseason. They are the 2015 Denver Broncos, the 2012 Baltimore Ravens, and the 2011 New York Giants. All 3 of them went on to win the Super Bowl after beating Brady in the regular and postseason. But beating Brady in the postseason has been impossible as a Buccaneer. And you want to talk about a difference maker, right? Tom Brady, if they win Sunday, will have won his 6th straight playoff game as the Tampa Bay Bucks quarterback. To put that in perspective, before Tom Brady got to Tampa Bay, the franchise's history from 1976 to 2019, 44 seasons, the Bucks won exactly 6 playoff games. And Tom Brady as a quarterback, his teams over their last 20 postseason games are 17-3. There is no franchise in NFL history that has ever gone 17-3 over a 20-game playoff span. The only one that came close was the Washington, then Redskins, now football team. From January of 83 to January of 94, they went 16-4. So that is the ultimate difference maker in Brady. But why the line may be moving is because of the strength of that defensive line, and the offensive line for the Tampa Bay Bucks took some hits. Tristan Wirfs was in and out of that game. Those were the first snaps he's missed in his entire career. He's an all-pro right tackle. He's in a walking boot right now. I have no idea whether or not he's going to be able to play. Neither does Bruce Arians. Jansen is also beat up. And the strength of that Bucks, besides all the other stuff, has been the health and consistency of that offensive line. And the last thing you want to have with Aaron Donald and company coming into town is questions on that offensive line.
So you're saying Tom Brady is pretty good then?
Yeah, can confirm. Yes. Let me run the numbers. By the way,
have numbers?
Yeah,
go ahead, Trey.
This is my favorite one. Outside of his head coach, Bruce Arians, Tom Brady is older than the other 3 head coaches still left in the NFC. He's older than every single head coach besides his own that's playing this weekend in the NFC.
Before I get to the last game, I want to ask you about Tom Brady, because I had a debate with some friends in a group chat earlier this week. Do you think that when he's finally done, and who knows, that could be 10 years from now the way he's playing.
Yeah.
But when he's finally done, do you think he goes off with Giselle onto some beach somewhere, or do you think he tries to find a way to stay in football some kind of way?
I think he wants to be involved always, much in the same way that Peyton is always wanting to be involved. Like Tom, you don't play at 44 and all the things he wants to do just to quit and go away from the game. Now, he says he wants to be a more present father, and that's great. And I totally understand that. But I don't think, look, he's such a competitor, guys. I tell you a great story about Brady, okay? There was a time when he was with the Patriots. They were playing a basketball game. It was a charity tournament against Foxborough police and firefighters. It's a charity event, and they were down going into the 4th quarter of that basketball game. And Tom Brady got the Patriots together and said, "Are you bleeping kidding me? What are you guys bleeping doing? We're bleeping professional athletes. We're not going to lose to a bunch of bleeping firefighters and policemen." And they went out and kicked their ass in the 4th quarter.
That's outstanding.
he is that competitive. So I can't imagine him just saying I'm good and be lounging somewhere, in Bali. I don't believe it.
Peyton and Eli are great together. But couldn't you see Peyton and Tom Brady having a show together? That would be outstanding.
I think it'd be great content, and Tom's about great content. I mean, you don't look that pretty without having some idea if that's what you want to do.
There's no doubt about it. All right, let's get to the last game that we have here, and maybe it's the biggest game. You talk about Chiefs and Bills in Arrowhead. Here's a line I don't understand, Trey. I get that the Bills beat up on them earlier in the year, but the Chiefs at home in the playoff game are only 2-point favorites. They haven't been lower than a 2-point favorite all year long, and I find this line just completely odd.
Yeah, it's a little narrow for my taste too. Look, first of all, let's be clear. What the Buffalo Bills did against the Patriots was ridiculous. It was the first game in NFL history where every yard a team could have gotten, they got. What I mean by that is they scored 7 touchdowns. They didn't punt. They didn't kick a field goal, and they didn't turn it over on downs. Like literally every yard that was available to them, they got in that game. But I felt like that game was a cleansing of massive proportions for the city of Buffalo, its fans, and a lot of the players on that team who had to eat a lot of you-know-what from Bill Belichick over the years. And I felt like they unloaded 20 years of angst and just it all came out. They flushed the system. So I'm curious to see what happens next. And I'm glad you mentioned that about Arrowhead because for years, as you guys know, Chiefs couldn't win a home game, right? They couldn't win a home playoff game. They went almost 2 decades without winning a home playoff game. Well, since Patrick Mahomes became the starter, the Chiefs are 6-1 at Arrowhead. And the only loss in the postseason at Arrowhead with Patrick Mahomes under center was the 2018 AFC Championship game. And that's only a loss because a game-sealing late interception of Tom Brady by Daniel Sorensen was negated by Dee Ford lining up in the neutral zone.
That's right.
So if he doesn't line up in the neutral zone, we're talking about a Chiefs team that's already been to 3 straight Super Bowls, potentially trying to do the thing that the Buffalo Bills have gone to 4 straight Super Bowls. That defense for Kansas City is much better at home than it is on the road. And when they played the Bills earlier this year, they didn't have Melvin Ingram. They didn't have Chris Jones on the field. They didn't have Juan Thornhill starting over Daniel Sorensen. So it is a much different Chiefs defense that they'll be facing. And the Chiefs defense over its last 6 home games, including the playoff win over the Steelers, the defense hasn't given up more than 14 points because one of the Steelers' touchdowns was a fumble recovery run in by T.J. Ward. So they haven't given up more than 14 points in 6 straight home games at Arrowhead. That crowd is real. It's like this. It's like the folks at the Caesars Superdome. It is a real thing that you have to account for at Arrowhead, much like I have to account for it when you come play in New Orleans. And I think there's going to be points scored, but I think the Chiefs defense is going to play a lot better than people are expecting.
Also, Trey, I think in that game that you also overlooked the fact that how well the Chiefs have played since that, rough, sluggish 6-7 game start or so. They have played like a team on fire. In Buffalo, really, they don't have a real signature win over the last half of the season.
Well, the big one for them was going into Foxborough. Yeah, going into Foxborough and winning that game, which essentially sealed the division. But you're right. Look, going into the postseason, they were 5-5 against teams 500 or better. And Melvin Ingram was part of that Steelers team week 1 that went into Buffalo and was constantly in the backfield harassing Josh Allen. This game should be great, though. Like, it's the first time in NFL history of a playoff game with 2 quarterbacks coming in having thrown 5 touchdown passes in their previous postseason game. It's also the first postseason game where we've had 2 opponents come in, each having scored 40 points in their previous postseason game. Like, there's a reason this is the late game on Sunday. This is the crescendo everybody wants to see. And I think it's going to be a great game. But if you're telling me, until someone beats Patrick Mahomes in Arrowhead, I need to see it before I can believe it.
What is your best bet for the weekend, Trey, speaking of crescendos?
Well, that's a really good question because you could make the case for every single one of these road teams pretty strongly. If Derrick Henry plays, I feel like might be my best bet because I think a lot of times we fall in love with a team that wins on Wild Card weekend, and then we realize these number 1 seeds, are number 1 seeds for a reason. I certainly hope Nick Bosa is healthy enough to play, and he's going through the protocol as well. Because obviously that's a game changer because he can apply pressure that Aaron Rodgers probably hasn't seen really all season long because he wasn't a part of that Chiefs team that was led by Jordan Love when they harassed when they harassed Love that entire game when he was out because of COVID. So I really feel like if Derrick Henry is capable and ready to roll, that might be a problem for Cincinnati because of that thinness on the defensive line that I talked about.
Yeah, I know. I like that pick. I agree with it. But before we let you go, real quick look at some Super Bowl odds. Any values on here? I mean, is this postseason? It's still pretty early in the postseason, but does it shape up real well for one team? You mentioned the Rams, if they can beat the Bucs, maybe.
Yeah, listen, I know Green Bay is the prohibitive favorite, but we've seen them struggle with this number one seed before. They were the number one seed last year, had a home game against Tom Brady at Lambeau, couldn't find a way to get it done. In 2011, the year they almost went undefeated after they'd won the Super Bowl with Aaron Rodgers at quarterback in Super Bowl 45. They had the bye and they lost to the Giants and they look rusty. I'm telling you, there's more pressure on Aaron Rodgers and the Green Bay Packers, I believe, than any other team on the board right now because of what's at stake and potentially this being his last game as a Green Bay Packer if they lose.
All right, Trey, we do have one question from a reader here or a viewer. Is it cold where you are?
No, it is not cold in any way, shape, or form where I am. Would you like me to tell you where I am?
Yeah.
I'm in Maui. Yeah, I'm in Maui. So
yeah,
it's not cold here at all, and I am enjoying the fact that it is not cold here at all.
They just canceled our kids' school for tomorrow because it's going to be like below 40 here, and people freak out. So that's. But
we have. Yeah.
Go ahead, Trey.
Go ahead. No, I'm saying we have real cold back in the Northeast where we normally are this time of year. So thoughts and prayers to everyone dealing with 40-degree temperatures in the world.
40 degrees and a little rain, and so the school is canceled. But
T's and P's.
Yeah. Speaking of New Orleans, we'll end with this. The Saints quarterback situation, obviously, the question of the offseason around here. In your mind, do you see it being a draft pick? Do you see them re-signing Jameis Winston, trying to swing a big deal for a Russell Wilson? This could go a lot of different directions.
Listen, first of all, this might be the craziest quarterback offseason we've ever had because it's not supposed to be a very strong quarterback draft, although I think 2 or 3, maybe 4 might go late in the first round. But you mentioned Russell Wilson. There's the potential, guys, that 3 franchise quarterbacks for a variety of different reasons could be on the move. In Aaron Rodgers, Russell Wilson, and I know there's all sorts of baggage that you have to unload with that, but Deshaun Watson as well. And there are teams like the New Orleans Saints, like the Pittsburgh Steelers, who think they are maybe a better quarterback away from getting to where the Chiefs and the Bills and the Bucks and the Rams are. And James played really well. Like, he played really well for you guys. And, he got hurt obviously in that game at Caesars Superdome where you guys beat the Bucks. I thought Jameis acquitted himself fairly well. Now, obviously, I think he has put himself in a position to earn more than the 1-year contract he got this last time around. But there are a variety of ways that Sean Payton and company can find a way to bring in a quarterback, and it's going to be really interesting to watch when free agency begins.
Sounds like it's something to do.
Before we let him go, Zach, I got to throw out the open invitation, Trey, for you to come on our podcast here on NOLA.com, bet.NOLA.com. We have a podcast twice a week. I'd love to have you on during Super Bowl week.
You got it, man. We'll lock it down. We'll make it happen. I promise.
Work it out. Thank you.
All right, so more to come from Trey Wingo. We appreciate you joining us, and we'll hear from you on Datitude in a couple of weeks. Thank you, Trey.
All right, guys. We'll see you soon. Take care.
See you, Trey.
That is Trey Wingo, former SportsCenter anchor on ESPN, now the Senior Trends Officer at Caesars Sportsbook. We appreciate him joining us. And again, NFL playoffs coming this weekend. A lot of interesting stuff. He's the Senior Trends Officer for a reason. He had a lot of good trends there.
Trey, I mean, Zach, I think you've encapsulated everything with your frozen face there. You are scaring the viewers away, I think. So, if you're going to get frozen, you need to have a little bit better face there.
I don't, the last time we were at the book, every time we're here, every time we're here, it's such good internet. But today, apparently, it's been problematic. So I don't know what to tell you.
I think you got infected by Devin's internet from the last couple of weeks. I don't know what's going on.
It's contagious.
But seriously, in all seriousness, what a great interview. I mean, Trey is so informed about everything. He is. I mean, I spent a lot of time, and I mean a lot of time on Tuesdays and Wednesdays, going through handicaps, looking through stats. He had like 4 or 5 things that I never even came across. And again, I'll spend 20 hours going through these picks before I make them for just 4 games. And he's got stuff like, I didn't know that. I didn't see that. So what an outstanding guest.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And by the way, if you want to pick those divisional round games, you can. Trey Wingo is not our pro, but Jeff Duncan is for our Beat the Pros contest. And you can win a weekend stay for 2 at Harrah's New Orleans by picking against Jeff Duncan, beating him throughout the NFL playoffs. Go to NOLA.com/beatthepros to play. And by the way, if you play all of our contests with us, now you've already missed college football, but if you hop on there and get NFL playoffs done and play the other 4 throughout the year, that's March Madness, the Masters, the NBA playoffs, and if they have them, the Major League Baseball playoffs, you could win a trip for 2 to Caesars Palace in Las Vegas. So it gets even better. Jeff Duncan's pick.
How can Duncan be the pro when I'm the one there that's 30 games above 500 and beating this Keister?
Because we saw big bucks and we decided to fade you.
Fair enough. You got me.
Yeah. Well, anyway, it's funny because Jim, we may be in trouble because you and I agree on all 4 picks this weekend. We're both on, not to spoil it for anybody, but we're both on the Titans, the Packers, the Chiefs, and the Rams, right? We're on all 3 favorites plus the Rams. Well, Duncan's against is the opposite. He's on 3 underdogs plus the Bucks. So I don't know what that means.
I will say this about Duncan, though, and knowing him as long as I have, Duncan loves to pick underdogs in the playoffs no matter who they are. I mean, he just does. Not as much during the regular season, but he was all over the dog last week. He's all over the dog again this week. He just, I don't know if it's his optimistic view of life and everything else, but he's always rooting for the underdog. I think, to me, the playoffs sometimes are a little bit anticlimactic. Not every year, but I don't know about you guys, but I kind of expected this to be a favorite kind of year with all the crazy things we had going on in the regular season. You just kind of expect, okay, it can't be that good again in the postseason. And so far, I know it's early, but that's kind of how it's shaped out so far.
Yeah, I mean, I think we talked about it on Datitude on yesterday, Jim. There's a gulf this year, and last year too. The NFL, is famous for its parity, but there's a gulf between the top 6 or 7 teams and everybody else, and that's what we're seeing so far. And honestly, that's why. I mean, we'll take a look at these Super Bowl odds too, because I really kind of like the Titans at plus 850, and the reason I say that is because they've got the easiest matchup this weekend. And I'm not saying Cincinnati can't beat them, but that's the one team that sort of doesn't belong in this group of 8, in my opinion. It's not one of the top teams. And so it's almost like they have an easier path to get in the Final Four. And if you're telling me they can get in the Final Four at plus 850, I'm grabbing that.
Well, I clearly like the Titans this week because I agree with you wholeheartedly that they have the easiest match of the weekend. No offense to everybody that's still rooting for Burrow and Chase. But, again, here's another spread I don't get because you look at the Packers and Niners, that's a 6-point spread. To me, the Titans are much better than the Bengals are, than the Packers are over the Niners, if that makes any sense. But I'll tell you what odds I do like. I got the Titans back when no one was believing in them, back before they went on that little stretch at 40-1. So I'm liking those odds right now.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I don't get that at all, where the Bengals are by far the long shot here. The Titans get to play them at home. And, I mean, obviously the Titans, if they win, they're going to be home underdogs next week against either Buffalo or Kansas City, but only by a couple of points, I would think.
No, and I'll tell you, there's a good value on both the Titans and the Bengals because you're looking at 8.5-1 and 15-1. So one of them's going to win, and you're going to get a decent value going forward the rest of the way. So even if you only put a little bit down, it might be worth putting a little bit down on both of them if you're not sure who's going to win this game. Bengals at 15-1, that's about the cost. I don't know how great a value that is, but again, one of those teams is going to win, and you'll have a team in a conference championship game at either 8.5-1 or 15-1. You got to like those numbers.
Yeah, absolutely. So just to remind you, if you want to play Beat the Pros, it's NOLA.com/Beat the Pros. Play against Jeff Duncan. His picks this weekend: Bengals plus 3.5, 49ers plus 6, Bucks minus 3, and Bills plus 2. So I don't know. I don't know about those picks, but we'll see. He's the pro. So AFC Championship odds, by the way, same thing here. I mean, you take those two teams at the bottom, and whoever wins, it seems like you have value on your ticket going into next weekend.
Yeah, so you basically have at worst a 3.2 to 1 chance to win some money. So and I don't think that either one of those teams is going to be more than a 3 to 1 shot. I mean, look, you look at a money line going into next week, Tennessee at home against either Buffalo or Kansas City. You're not going to get plus 320 on a money line. And also, if you talk about Cincinnati going to either Buffalo or Kansas City, you're not going to get plus 550 on a money line. So it might be worth a little bit to put something in there. Even if you don't think they're going to win the Super Bowl, maybe this is the route to go. And I agree with Uncle Big Nick. Vegas does not like Tennessee. They've never liked Tennessee. They completely downplay them all year long in every single game, and Tennessee is making people some money so far this season.
Yeah, I don't know. You know, the Bengals would be pretty significant underdogs in either Buffalo or Kansas City. But if Tennessee wins that game, no, not quite. But at plus 320, I'd see a lot of value there in Tennessee. Devin, you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, Jim and I had talked about earlier odds and ends, but Tennessee is still the best value on the board because if they go out and dominate and beat the Bengals handily, I mean, you see those odds go down significantly. So I think it was surprising to me, at least, that their odds didn't move at all from earlier in the week to now, and just seeing that they're still one of the best values on the board because they still have that home field advantage. I think that's the team to continue to watch going forward.
Yeah, yep. And I like them to win this week, and I like them to cover, and I think going forward that could mean good things too. A quick look at the NFC on its standalone. Packers are pretty big favorites at this point. I don't like that price for them. I think you're not getting any value there. You're better off maybe just betting them on the money line each week.
Yeah, well, it kind of depends. Zach, I don't know. If you really like Green Bay, I think you need to take them now because even if it's Green Bay, Tampa Bay, it's going to be in Green Bay. You're not going to get a plus 155. So really, if you're certain, I mean, there's no way you could be certain, but if you're very confident they're going to just beat the 49ers this week, then I'd say, yeah, go put a little bit of money on them at plus 155 to win next week. Because they're going to be, even if they play Tampa, I got to think they're going to be minus 120 to win. If they're playing the Rams, I got to think it's probably minus 150-ish. So if you think they're going to win this week, and I personally do, I just don't. I don't think that's that bad of a price. But I think the best value on this board is the Rams, and we'll get into it in a little bit.
Absolutely, yeah.
I don't like that the numbers that they're begging you to bet on the Rams. To me, they're giving you they give plus 3 at minus 120, but the Bucks are even at minus 3. They're begging you to bet. I mean, it just scares me. This number scares me. I don't know why it's this low. I don't like this number. I'd feel much better about the Rams really if it was 3.5 than I do at 3. They know something I don't know, and it made me back off of the Rams a little bit because that was going to be my best bet of the week, and now it's kind of lower tier.
I will say this to that comment. Adam Chernoff, who we're going to have on the show at some point, does a great podcast, the daily podcast for Covers.com. And he had a couple of bookmakers on earlier this week who said, you will not see that number go to 3.5. It won't happen because the Rams are too good. And so, whether that means they like the Rams at plus 3 or not, they've got too much respect for them for it to go to 3.5. And so if you're waiting for that, you might as well just bet them because it's not, or not, because it's not going to move to 3.5.
I think there's more big money that likes the Rams enough to keep it from going to 3.5. I think Aunt Mabel is going to be a bet on Tampa Bay, I think. I have not seen any percentages yet, but I'd be willing to bet that more of the big money is going to be on the Rams.
All right, a couple of quick basketball notes before we wrap it up with our best bets of the weekend for football. First off, LSU loses a tough one last night. Will Wade went crazy on the refs. Then he went crazy in his post-game news conference. You got to look up the video if you didn't see it. I mean, it was like an obvious goaltend they didn't call on Alabama, and he just went ballistic, and rightfully so.
Should have.
At the time, it didn't really seem like it was going to make any difference. Then, as it turned out, the technical that he got cost them 2 points, and they ended up losing by 3. And it was just it's been a tough week for LSU, and they got to go to Tennessee on Saturday. And so the upshot of that is we talked last week about, this is a great value, and they're all the way down to 5-1. Well, now you can get LSU at 18-1. But LSU's biggest problem is that Auburn is running away with this conference.
Oh, they also have injuries, Zach. We don't know how bad Darius Day is hurt. He went off limping. He twisted that ankle pretty good last night. And then Xavier Pinson, you could see on the sideline that even though he's a transfer, came out of the transfer portal, he's already one of the main pieces of heart and soul on this team. Like, he's involved in everything. I love it. So we don't know where the injuries are going to lead them. Now, again, we talked about how their schedule gets a little bit easier after they get past this Tennessee game on the road this weekend. So I could see LSU making a run. That number is certainly not going to get any bigger than that. So if you want to take a flyer on LSU, now's the time to do it. Or maybe wait if you think they're going to lose this weekend. But I wouldn't wait anymore on that, because I think Will Wade got his team's attention. You talk about, look, I would have got a technical there too. I thought the officiating was absolutely horrendous last night. Second game in a row that the major differential between fouls between the two teams and with LSU. And I don't know, Will Wade rubs a lot of people the wrong way. I get that. But, man, that was pretty brutal to watch last night.
Yeah, and I mean, I have an LSU ticket at 9-1. I'm not adding to that anymore. And the reason really is not that I don't believe in LSU or that their schedule gets easier. The problem is I don't know that Auburn's going to lose 4 games all year in the SEC. I mean, they might be the best team in the country. And so if LSU's already got 3 losses, you figure they're going to lose at least 1 more somewhere. That might be that. I mean, Auburn might not lose that many more the rest of the year.
Devin, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, Devin, what are your thoughts on the race?
Yeah, I think Auburn is clearly the best team in the SEC, and I really think it's going to be hard for somebody to catch them, at least in the regular season. Now, come tournament play, an SEC tournament, you could maybe catch them then and then win the tournament championship. But I think for LSU, I think their goal right now should be try to continue to grind out this stretch, get your players healthy, and then get ready for a tournament run. Because it seems like Auburn is going to continue to play at a high level. And even if they suffer maybe an injury or two, I think they're still good enough to overcome that. So if I were LSU, obviously you go out and still want to win every game, but I think you start preparing for the long haul instead of, trying to win these short battles at the very least and get you guys back healthy.
Yeah, and that's the tricky part about the betting the SEC. They don't really need to win it. They're not gonna try to necessarily win it. If you're down 3 games with 3 games to go, you're not going all out and playing everybody 38 minutes a game just to win a conference title. Because, as you say, I mean, what's important is how you do in the tournaments, how you do in the conference tournament, and then obviously, especially how you do in March Madness. And so that's the hard part about betting on these conferences. I think the ship has kind of sailed. I still think LSU at 9-1 was a good bet. It's just, look, 9-1 bets are not going to win all that often. So that's just the way.
The key in the SEC, Zach, is finishing in the top 4, right? So you get that bye, the double bye base, the double bye basically. So that's what you're really playing for. I mean, and in the grand scheme of things, if you're the 3 seed or the 4 seed, I don't think it really matters all that much. I mean, yeah, you'd like to play a little bit easier game in your first, in the game that you play first. But in the grand scheme of things, you're still going to have to play Auburn or Kentucky or Texas A&M or Alabama or whatever it is. You're still going to have to play those teams at the end anyway. So I don't think seeding means all that much in a conference tournament, especially when you're talking about if there were 2 or 3 teams that were far better than everybody else, then yeah, you want to be one of those top 3 and not have to play number 1 or number 2 until the final. But when you're talking about SEC, that's obviously front loaded. Anybody from 1 through 6, to me, could win the tournament. And
more important, again, is your seed in the NCAA tournament.
Correct.
And as of a week ago, LSU is listed at a 2 seed in most places, and I think it was CBS had them as a number 1 seed. Now they've lost a couple; they've probably fallen off of that line. But the point is, their net ranking is still in really good position. They still have all the quad 1 wins and still some more opportunities to get them, and they're in a really good spot for the tournament. It's just probably not going to mean a regular season conference title.
No, and they could still finish. I think they have an excellent chance to be a 3 or at worst a 4 seed, assuming they don't tank some games going forward.
Yep. And you're in position to make a Final Four if you're one of those top 4 seeds. So
that's right.
That's all you're playing for. The other basketball of note, the hometown team, the Pelicans, plays tonight at Madison Square Garden. They're 4-point dogs. It's at 6:30 on Bally Sports New Orleans. I guess, everybody looked at this schedule this month. The Pelicans' schedule is, they played some really good teams, and then they had this East Coast road trip. It's treated them rough. I don't know what you say at this point. They're just trying to tread water until if and when they can get Zion back.
I will say this about this game, Zach, and this is the kind of game that I bet the Pelicans. And every time I see a line move oddly in the NBA, I take the other team. And this one has moved. The Knicks were 2.5-point favorites last night, which means a ton of money coming in on the Knicks or whatever. And I love when people start fading the Pelicans because that's when they play their best. And the Knicks, they've been hot and cold. They've been hovering around 500 all year long. They lost 2 in a row. They haven't been playing that great the last few days. I saw them get blown out by Charlotte the other day on Martin Luther King Day. I'm not impressed with the Knicks at all. I think this is a good spot for the Pelicans coming off a loss.
And the Pelicans have had a couple days off, which is rare in the NBA. They played in Boston on Monday, then you got a short flight and a couple days off. So, not a bad situation for them. Devin, you watched any Pelicans lately?
Yeah, caught a few games over the last few weeks. Obviously saw the Timberwolves game last week and saw a few games over the weekend. I think they're at this point they're just trying to figure out how to win on the road, and I think winning tonight on the road in Madison Square Garden could go a long way. They've had a tough road trip, played the Knicks, played Boston, and those are 2 teams that are obviously contending in kind of in the spot to contend in the playoff hunt. You got the Knicks team that's hovering around 500, like Jim said. I think this is a good night especially for Brandon Ingram to have a big game. Wouldn't be surprised if he put on a show in Madison Square Garden and they find a way to win this one.
Richard says Zion may never play again for the Pelicans. Probably a little pessimistic, but you never know. I mean, it hasn't gone well so far, so don't think that's out of the question.
I think if they get themselves to where they're in any kind of shape to get in the playoffs, which right now it looks like they'll be in contention at least until the end of March. I mean,
there's still only 2 games out of the play-in.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah.
So I think you're going to see Zion at some point this season. I just don't know when.
I wish I could give you a date on that, just like I wish I could give you a date on mobile betting. But we may actually be able to do that very soon, by the way. And I want to remind everybody to sign up for the Caesars Sportsbook app. $300 just for signing up and making any sort of deposit. And then they will also match your first deposit up to $3,000. And by the way, if you were like us and signed up a long time ago, they will honor that deal for you. So don't worry about that. Go to NOLA.com/Caesars. Get the best deal in the market on sportsbook signups.
So I hate to put you on the spot, Zach, but I got to ask you, have we confirmed that if you've already made a deposit and then you add on and make another deposit, they will count that as part of your first deposit?
I have not confirmed that specific detail. So we're still waiting on that. Although I have heard that there may be an even better deal in the works. So, we'll wait and see. We will wait and see, and hopefully that'll be the case. But either way, it's worth getting out there, and it's worth getting the Caesars Sportsbook app. So NOLA.com/Caesars. Our thanks to Trey Wingo and James Carville for coming on today on Odds and Ends. Divisional round coming up in the NFL. Let's talk our best bets before we sign off here. Devin Jackson, your best bet of the weekend is Rams +3.
Yeah, I really like the Rams, and I talked with Jim earlier this week on Odds and Ends about that. If the Rams look really good on Monday night, which they did, I think they have a really good chance to make a Super Bowl run. And the Cardinals didn't play well, didn't have a great game plan, but Well, look what the Rams did offensively. They're able to get a big boost out of Cam Akers coming back and being healthy. And I think that's going to be a difference maker in this game, in this matchup. Obviously, the Rams did beat the Bucs earlier this season, but they didn't have Cam Akers. And you add that dimension, that running game, besides Sony Michel, and both guys can receive out of the backfield. Plus, the Bucs secondary is banged up. Offensive line has some issues. It's not a good recipe for the Bucs at this point. I mean, they got some issues with Wirfs, Jensen in the interior. You got Aaron Donald coming across the line and scrimmage every play as well. So I really think the Rams straight out win outright in this one, and I think they win in convincing fashion.
Yeah, I'm going to piggyback on that and then let Jim wrap it up. But I think at this time of year, the weather gets cold and things get a little bit tight. Yes, you look at the quarterbacks, but you also look along the lines. And Trey Wingo talked about it, that the Bengals defensive line is banged up. They're going to have trouble against Derrick Henry, who he talked today. It looked like he's going to play for everything in the world. And then, just like you said, Devin, the Bucs offensive line is banged up. Tristan Wirfs may not play, their best offensive lineman. I keep thinking back to that Sunday night game in December when the Saints went over there and just lived in the backfield. And so I really like both of those picks. I like the Rams and I like the Titans this weekend. And Jim, you wrap it up. I mean, obviously you're on the Titans too, but teasing it with the Packers. Explain your reasoning in that pick.
Well, again, for those who don't understand a teaser, you got to get both picks right, but you get 6 points in your favor. And so I'm going to give a little insight here. What I use right now until Caesars comes alive, my teaser is only minus 110 instead of minus 120. So it's like a regular bet so far. But I was able to buy a half a point on this and get it at minus 120. So I've got actually Packers plus a half and Titans plus 3, which is a significant number. But that being said, basically the Packers and Titans just need to win with a teaser. I think both of them have excellent chances to win this weekend. The 49ers coming across the country on a short week for them. They played Sunday. Now they have to play Saturday. They had to go back home from Dallas. They've been on the road 4 of the last 6 weeks. I kind of liken them to the Raiders from last week, having to be road warriors, having to go through games where they were in must-win situations. And I hear what Trey's saying about wanting to run against this defense, but this is probably going to be the only weather game of the entire batch of games this weekend. All the other games, the weather looks great. In fact, in Kansas City, I think it's supposed to be like almost 50 degrees when they play. And the same goes for Tampa Bay. And I think in Nashville, it's going to be in the mid-30s, but no wind. So this is going to be the only weather game. There could be snow. Who knows how to play in snow better? I mean, I know Jimmy G played in New England for a little bit, but I'm trusting Aaron Rodgers, and I just can't see Aaron Rodgers losing in the first round. I understand. I still don't think they're a Super Bowl champion team. They may prove me wrong, but I certainly think this is a great matchup for them. Aaron Rodgers has his way. And Tennessee, you're talking about Cincinnati. Their big win was last week, right? They got that playoff monkey off their back. I can't see them going to the number 1 seed and winning this week. I think things slow down for them a little bit. And like Trey said, they're banged up a little bit along the defensive front, although I did see earlier that looks like Trey Hendrickson will play.
Yeah, he is going to play, and but so is Derrick Henry. So that
exactly. And
pretty
by
good
the
trade
way,
for the Titans.
One last thing, if you like my teasers or if you like Packers, especially if you like Tennessee, bet it now, because as soon as they say Derrick Henry is going to play, I think that line's going to go to 4.5 or 5.
By the way, I was just looking at the app. You can bet a 6.5 point teaser at Caesars. You pay minus 130 for it instead of minus 120. But if you want that extra half point to get Titans plus 3, or you can even bet a 7 point teaser for minus 140, you could get it to Titans plus 3.5. Interesting, just in the last hour, the line has moved. It's now Green Bay minus 5.5. So if you like the Packers, it's gone half a point in their favor. If you like the Niners, better get it before it moves anymore. Our thanks to Trey Wingo for coming on, Senior Trends Officer at Caesars. Our thanks to James Carville, as always. Play Beat the Pros with Jeff Duncan. And we will see you at 4 o'clock on Monday for Odds and Ends, and we'll recap Division Weekend and look forward to the Conference Championship. Until then, for Devin Jackson, Jim Derry, I'm Zach Ewing. This has been At the Book.